Welcome to Superior Media's On TV. Tonight we are going to delve into the issue of the Basic Income Pilot Project. The announcement on July 31st of the intent by the Ford government to cancel the Basic Income Pilot Project has sent a shockwave through the communities and people for the program with which it was designed to support. The project has been running in Hamilton, Brantford, Brant County, Thunder Bay, the municipality of Oliver Papoonge, the township of Shunya, municipality of Nebing, the township of Conmee, O'Connor, and the township of Gillies, as well as Lindsay, which is in the Kawartha Lakes region of our province. Tonight we have some experts with us today. In the studio I have Rob Rattle, who is the Executive Director of the Crane Institute for Sustainability. Welcome. And live via Skype, we have Sheila Regehr. And now Sheila is the chair of the Basic Income Canada Network. We also have Ron Hikel, who was the executive director in the 1970s of the Mincome project in Dauphin, Manitoba. The Mincome project stands for the Manitoba Basic Income Project. Ron was also part of the University of Manitoba in the School of Social Work, is a U.S. veteran in the Air Force, and I would like to welcome you and thank you so much for being with us tonight in the studio here and on TV. So both of you are you're Skyping in from Toronto, is that correct?
I'm actually in Stratford.
You're in Stratford, oh, very nice. Well, tonight, what I'd like to do is ask you guys, what is it about the Basic Income Pilot Project that is such an important part of a just society in terms of the social science of it and the economic benefits to the communities with which that it is being offered? So let's start with you, Sheila. Perhaps can you share with us a bit about the family benefits and the issues that raises?
So the main issue about basic income, or the main reason we're all looking at this, is because we've seen that we do have failed income security systems in our country and in many places around the world. So what I think is important for a lot of people to understand is the difference between the income support we provide through our provincial and territorial governments called social assistance, right, and what a basic income model is. The distinctions come out when you start looking at social assistance and how rule-bound it is, how punitive it is at times. It's really invasive in people's lives. It has really strong work disincentives built into it because as you earn, you really don't get to keep much of that, and you're always threatened with falling off of the program. So there's actually very little income security in social assistance and very little stability. The basic income model, however, is not a new idea, it's not radical, and it's not theoretical. It actually does exist in Canada. So we know what this model looks like. It's the model that we use to deliver benefits for seniors through old age security and the guaranteed income supplement, and through the Canada Child Benefit. So those are benefits that people get where we don't require people to jump through hoops to get them. And nobody in a bureaucracy anywhere is around to monitor how you spend your money. We trust people. We trust people's judgment that they know best what to do for their families.
Right.
And those programs work.
Right. Well, thank you, Sheila. Ron, can you talk to us a bit about the issues that you see unfolding as we go forward?
From my perspective, the most unfortunate aspect about the Conservative government's decision to cancel the pilot project is that it's almost a way of saying they prefer not to know the real behavioral impact of a new way of providing people who need it with income support. When I was running the basic income program in Manitoba, I was also responsible for the provincial welfare system.
Okay.
And I then went on to Saskatchewan to run the welfare system there. And I've also worked on welfare systems in 3 other Canadian provinces, including Ontario, as a management consultant. So I have personal experience with that allows me to compare the effectiveness of the negative income tax, a basic income program, and welfare. I can tell you that the evidence suggesting that a basic income program using a negative income tax concept, is substantially better at encouraging people not only to take work and seek it and take it, but to develop their talent for doing it more significantly over time, because you can guarantee in the way the system is designed that people will always be better off, significantly better off by working than by simply accepting payment.
Right.
So
Thank you very much. We're going to take a quick little break here and we'll get back shortly. Thank you. Just stay with us and we'll be back on the subject. Basic Income Pilot Project. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. And we're talking tonight about the Basic Income Pilot Project. And let's go back to you, Ron, if you don't mind. Ron, can you talk to me about what do you think the Ford government's motivation is for attempting to cancel this Basic Income Pilot Project?
Well, I don't know the answer to that, in fact, but I'll make a speculation. It looks to me as though the government decided that it preferred its ideologically based conviction that a basic income program would not have the effect of increasing work incentive, but in fact, by their cancellation, what they're saying is they would prefer their speculation to certain knowledge. They prefer, in effect, theory to scientific fact. And that, it seems to me, is an unfortunate reality, particularly when one realizes that virtually the same thing happened in Manitoba almost 50 years ago now. In that the government, we completed the experiment in Manitoba. We produced thousands of running feet of data, but a newly elected government decided that it, having spent $17 million of the public money already, they didn't want to spend a dime to find out what the result of that work was. So they put the data in a warehouse, put a padlock on the door, and there it sits to this day. Okay. That seems to me is equivalent to hiding under the bed, when in fact you could know with a relatively manageable degree of effort what the behavioral effects of delivering income supplementation in a radically different way, a substantially different way, could in fact be. And that knowledge, it seems to me, would prove invaluable in improving the operational performance of today's welfare system.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. And Sheila, going back to you, you mentioned the word vulnerable and the vulnerable populations, that the financial stress that puts on an already vulnerable population, and the intrusive nature of how we come to how folks actually even become on social assistance, and the lengths and the amounts of things that they have to do to stay on social assistance. So what do you think will happen to the folks that are moving forward in this project? They're barely a year into this pilot project. How will that affect their income now going forward, do you think?
So there are a number of different issues that you raise, and I want to echo what Ron was saying about welfare systems. One of my previous jobs in another life was as executive director of the National Council of Welfare. Okay. And we monitored what was happening with social assistance across the country for decades. And the news is always bad. Those systems don't work. So we know that. And as Ron was saying, we buried data from Dauphin. In this case, we don't really even have data to bury. Right. So to your point, the data, I guess, as it exists now, the evidence that we have as it exists in the stories of the really courageous people who are coming forward to talk about their experience, to talk about what their life was like on social assistance, what got them there, and the just tremendous difference that even just a few months of basic income has made to their lives. And I think that, for me, is why the decision of the Ford government was so cruel and so pointless and unethical, because in a pilot that's supposed to be studying how stability of income affects people, they have now thrown all of these people back into uncertainty, not knowing what's happening going forward. There's been very limited information coming from the government. One day they're canceling the program. The next day they say, well, it's winding down, where we're not really sure what that means. Participants have been told that all they've been told is that they will get checks in August.
Oh my
But
gosh.
for people who have enrolled in school or assumed leases, or I mean, this is the first time they've been able to make long-term plans in a long time, many of them. So this is just devastating for those participants, but they are the evidence now. They're the stories, and the stories have been overwhelmingly positive.
Well, I'd like to go to Rob Rattle in our studio here and talk to him, because he raises the issues of the economics and the sustainability piece, and how the environment and how the financial sustainability of individuals being able to move forward in their life, that does impact on the environment around us in terms of like the climate environment. Am I saying that right, Rob?
Well, I think what you're trying to get at there, or what I'm trying to say there, is the idea of a basic income allows people to, and as Sheila was saying, better plan their life and think forward a little bit more. So it gives them the opportunity to pursue their dreams and their aspirations as they wish to pursue those, without the sort of Damocles hanging over them that they need to achieve some level of income just to support themselves. And bringing that back to the local economy, that many local economies are struggling, certainly in Northern Ontario. It allows them to consider things that might be outside of the purview of the standard consumption production treadmill that many people get themselves trapped into, in many smaller communities in particular.
Thank you, Rob. People don't choose poverty. People work to get out of poverty, and having this basic income allows them to, as you're saying, make plans and enroll in school and do different things, knowing that they have this income that they can fall back upon. So we're going to take a quick break here, and we'll get back to you in just a moment. And thank you very much. We'll be right back on TV. Welcome back to On TV. So Sheila, we're going to go back to you, and if you don't mind, if you could share a story with us that you have about the impacts of the sustainability.
So I have a lovely example that colleagues of mine in the Lindsay area have discovered that really highlights Rob's point about what happens in local economies. So one of the misconceptions about this pilot, first of all, is that almost everybody in the program was previously on welfare, and that is certainly not the case. The majority have jobs, they have employment, they have been working. In one case, one young woman has been working 4 jobs and barely able to find time to sleep and eat, but it's still not making ends meet. But there's a wonderful story from the Lindsay area about a couple who qualified for the basic income. They are a young couple who have an entrepreneurial bent, and they have, I think it's a natural food store or something, or food delivery system. Anyway, their business had already gotten started. Like, they were sort of moving their way along. Getting the basic income really helped stimulate their ability to grow their business. And their business did much better in Lindsay because other people now had money to be able to eat healthier food and to purchase the kind of products that they had available. So it was a win-win for everybody, for the local economy, for everybody who's able to eat better, and for this entrepreneurial couple.
Thank you, Sheila. So Ron, can you speak to us a little bit about your experience with the Basic Income Pilot Project in terms of things that you've seen around you?
Let me follow up on the story that Sheila just told by telling you a strikingly parallel story from my experience with Mincome. Dauphin is, of course, an agricultural area. Right. There was a family there that were farmers. They raised sheep. That was how they paid their bills and made their living. They were driving their lamb to market using an old pickup truck. The truck got older and older, and after a while, it was clear that it was not far away from stopping to run altogether. So the mother in the family said, I know what we'll do. We will save up our Mincome money, and we will use it as a down payment to buy a new truck. And that was, in fact, what they did. They took the Mincome money, they put it down on a down payment to buy the new truck. The truck enabled them to get their lambs and their meat to the market more effectively, and they were able to expand their business. almost more than 40 years later, a Dutch film company went to Dauphin to do a documentary on Mincome. They talked to this family, and the son in the family said, "Would you like to see the Mincome truck?" So the Dutch documentary company said, "Yes, absolutely." So out into a Manitoba field they went, and there, by gosh, was the sitting blue Mincome truck. They put a battery into it and turned it over. So this family's need to make a decent living was facilitated, made possible by the existence of the Mincome money that they were able to save to preserve their business. That is an example of the kind of thing not only that Sheila is talking about, but the kind of wider social benefit that is possible from a properly designed basic income program.
Thank you. Do you guys know which how many people were enrolled in the program? Was it 4,000 individuals that were enrolled in the basic income pilot project through the Wynne government?
I believe it's 4,000. Sorry, shall I go ahead? 4,000 participants who were receiving the actual income, and another 2,000 who were a control group, not receiving the money, but participating in the study by responding to surveys so that they could compare the populations.
Thank you, Sheila. And Ron, the story that you talked about was rural, and the list that I read earlier, the various places that were where the pilot project was happening, tend to be more rural in nature. Do you think that not all of them were rural, but the majority of them were rural? Do you think that the basic income pilot project works especially well in rural locations, or just in any community?
Part of the reality of the Manitoba experiment, which many people don't know, is that in fact the bulk of our participants were in the city of Winnipeg.
Okay.
They were in the urban area of the city of Winnipeg. We also had dispersed samples in about half a dozen rural communities as well. People know about the Dauphin part of it because it came closer to what a real program would look like. But in fact, the bulk of the people in it, as I say, were in urban areas. And to the extent that we have been able to understand the data, while there were differences between the behavioral impacts in urban and rural areas, both substantially benefited from the existence of a basic income program.
Thank you, Ron. Now, a question for you, Sheila. What do you think the impact of this will be going forward? Do you anticipate that the people that are currently being moved away from the program will be able to acquire social assistance at all, or like what do you think the ramifications of this will be to those people?
Well, this is a really big question, and quite a number of people are trying to explore answers. Across our network, we have people pursuing legal avenues, wondering if there are ways to be able to halt what's happening till at least we get a sense of what's going on. There were people who are, just protesting, so maybe the pressure on the government will help turn things around. But we still don't have definitive word from the government on, what their wind down strategy looks like. And they have in recent days been talking about this being a long runway. Most of us are hoping that runway is 2 years and that people will be allowed to continue for the recipients. The research part of it is a different question, but that ethically, at least the participants would be able to continue to receive that income. There's also the ethical consideration. The minister is on record as saying she wants to do this ethically. Now, I'm not a researcher myself, but I've been following these things, and there are ethical bodies and standards that must be met when you do experiments of this sort that involve human beings. And I think, we need to question what kind of ethical standards, the government committed to when it signed people up for this sort of thing. It's just really outrageous that, we have this lack of trust in our government, and it's been demonstrated that that's not trustworthy, which is in and of itself a really concerning trend in democracy. So what's next is hard to predict. the most, the most vulnerable of people who depended on this income are now in this quagmire. You just take one example. Say I'm a student and I'm potentially a student, I've enrolled in school, I've been saving up for my fees. This is August. I know I'm getting an August check. I don't know what's happening beyond that. So there are steps that you have to take to get into school, to fill out the paperwork, to do all of this stuff. Do I continue to save my fees for school? Or do I tell the school that I'm withdrawing so that I can save all of that money because I'm now going to need it for rent and food? I mean, people are in such real life dilemmas. It's almost impossible to see your way forward in this. So we would really hope that the government, will consider doing the humane and ethical thing and let the money at least continue to flow.
Thank you. So I'd just like to throw it back to Rob for a moment before we wrap up. Even though the Sault Ste. Marie was not chosen as one of the test sites for the pilot project, why do you think it's an important issue here locally in Sault Ste. Marie? Why should people care about the basic income pilot project, even though it's not happening in the Soo?
Well, Sault Ste. Marie is not that different than many of the other test sites located around, whether it be Thunder Bay or Lindsay, Ontario. Similar demographics. Again, you have to look at the economies. Again, everyone's struggling, similar sort of economies, similar numbers in terms of people who are on social assistance right now, and just the basic needs of people and families within Ontario and Canada today.
Yeah, it's interesting, Rob said basic needs, because as you were both of you were talking, I was thinking about, my university days of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and at the very bottom is the basic needs, and if they're not being met, then people cannot advance to the next level. So I hope that we can pick this up again. I'd really very much appreciate that we can do this again, and I want to thank you both for being part of this discussion today and for your time, and we'll get back to you, and thank you for joining us in the studio today. Rob Rattle, as always, the Crane Institute, Sheila Regehr, and Ron Hikel, thank you so much for all of the work you've done on this.
Thank you.
Glad to be with you.
Thank you.